The Arab Empire, Unit 3. By the end of this video, you should be able to describe Muhammad as a leader, explain why division arose after Muhammad's death, list reasons for the expansion and decline of the empire, and list several achievements of the Arab Empire. Muhammad's leadership. After Muhammad became a prophet, he was both a spiritual leader and a political leader. In terms of spiritual leadership, he was teaching and converting people to his message. Eventually, his popularity increased, and he actually wound up organizing a military so that he could protect his followers from persecution, because the tribal leaders weren't really into the idea of monotheism, and they weren't sure that they wanted to go along with Muhammad's teaching that there was only one God that you should worship. Muhammad was also a political leader. He left Mecca for a time to live and teach in the city of Medina. And when he returned to Mecca, he was able to establish control of the city. The city actually surrendered to him because of the size and strength of his army, and he declared the Kaaba to be a sacred shrine of the Muslims. Now, after Muhammad's death, Muhammad died without a male heir, so there's no clear successor. There's no one to take his place. His followers wound up choosing his father-in-law, a man named Abu Bakr. The empire expanded under Bakr into Syria, Egypt, other areas of North Africa, and up into Persia. But succession problems continued when Bakr died. There were a series of leaders who were assassinated. Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, served as caliph, or as the leader, for 5 years, but he was also assassinated. Eventually, the Umayyad dynasty was established. It was organized by Muawiyah, who's a rival of Ali, and he was popular partly because he believed in using the least amount of force possible. So he was seen as a more tolerant leader, as a maybe a more compassionate leader. He moved the capital of the Arab Empire, this area that we're talking about that was converted to Islam and under unified control. He moved the capital from Medina to Damascus, Syria. He continued to expand the territory of the empire through North Africa and into Spain. He attacked but could not defeat the Byzantines, and he made the position of caliph, or leader, a hereditary position, meaning that it was passed down through the family. So while the empire is growing and expanding, it still has some problems. There are tensions between the Arabs and the non-Arab converts. As the territory increases, more and more people are converted, and not all of them are Arab in ethnic origin. And the non-Arabs believed that the Umayyad dynasty favored the Arabs in the way that it ruled and made decisions. Eventually, there was a revolt against the Umayyads in Iraq. It was led by one of Ali's descendants, and the revolt was unsuccessful. The rebellion, the soldiers were wiped out to the last man, but it illustrates the division among the followers of Muhammad. People who became known as Sunnis were willing to accept Umayyad rule even if they didn't agree with all their policies, and they would also accept a caliph who was not a blood relative of Muhammad, a direct descendant. Shiites, however, believed that the only true descendants of Muhammad those were the only people who should be caliph. And because they couldn't agree on succession and who should be the leader, these became two very clear divisions in the Islamic religion that continue to exist today. After Abu al-Abbas overthrew the Umayyads, we have the establishment of the Abbasid dynasty. And in this period of rule, the capital was moved again to Baghdad. This was a key location on the Tigris River and along camel caravan trade routes across the region. The Abbasids tried to move some of the power in the empire away from the warriors and the military and increase the influence of judges and merchants and government officials. They encouraged equal treatment for everyone within the religion, and this is really the period of time known as the Golden Age of Islam, when the empire continued to prosper and its cultural influence grew. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. The decline of the empire comes like the decline of other groups that we've talked about. The empire becomes corrupt, and the way that they manage their affairs isn't as honest as people thought it should be. And they continue to struggle with internal divisions and people fighting for power and control within the empire. Also, like we talked about with the Romans, the empire grew so large that it was hard for one person to govern it. And so, especially in the outlying areas on the fringes of the empire, people decided they wanted to govern themselves rather than be governed by someone in a city that was so far away. They also came under attack and were overtaken by groups of Turks and Mongols. They were in conflict with the Christians in the Byzantine Empire, who's probably their closest neighbor, and neither side there could gain a clear advantage, but the conflict continued. And eventually, as a result of all of this, power shifted again geographically from Baghdad into Egypt. Now, despite the fact that the empire lasts, in comparison to the other empires, Greece and Rome, that we've talked about, for a fairly short period of time, they have some incredible achievements. They developed extensive trade networks well into Asia, India, and different parts of Europe. They built a number of prosperous cities with a variety of impressive buildings, palaces, mosques, fountains, baths, bazaars, which were the marketplaces. And there was an emphasis on urban or city living in this empire that was greater than some of the other places and groups that we've talked about. They continued to regard believers as equals, regardless of their social structure and their gender roles. Men and women had very clearly defined roles and behaviors that were expected of them, but as believers, they were considered equal in the eyes of God. They did a lot of work to preserve and translate the writings and the teachings of the ancient Greeks. They made significant discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, and you're going to learn more about those things in another video. And they became very accomplished architects and artists. We've reached the end of this video. If you need to rewind and rewatch part of it, please feel free to do so. And thanks for listening.